Welcome to Living Wealthy Radio with your host, Teresa Kuhn.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Living Wealthy Radio, heard every Sunday at noon here on Talk Radio, 1370 AM, streaming live at talk1370.com. I'm Teresa Kuhn, helping you live wealthier. Resources are available for you at livingwealthyradio.com. Have you ever been turned down for a loan or felt that sinking feeling after weeks of agonizing over credit applications, wondering about your credit score? What if all you had to do to get a loan was say how much you wanted? How would that improve your life? And more so, what if you could decide the repayment terms and the interest you paid actually made your savings grow more efficiently? What if you could actually be your own banker? Our guest today, Mr. Nelson-Nash, is the creator of the powerful infinite banking concept and a personal mentor of mine. He is going to show you how to see through the conventional wisdom and bypass traditional lending institutions in order to take charge of your own financial freedom. Welcome back to the show, Nelson.
It's good to be with you, and it's great to hear your voice.
I know. We didn't get a chance to say hello. So this is it. Hello.
Hello.
And you've been a very busy man, as you have been, I think, for the last 10 years. And I will share with our listeners that you are 83 years old. Mm-hmm. And you travel more than anybody I know all over the world. Sharing your concept, infinite banking concept. And more people today want to hear about your concept and are implementing your financial strategy in their lives. So how does it feel to be 83 years old and being that much in demand?
It's a joy. It is fun. It's good to be here. It's the best time of life, Teresa.
Well, you certainly went through hell and back. Mm-hmm. Before you realized how this financial concept, this financial strategy can change people's lives. And in fact, it changed your life. Sure.
Absolutely.
So tell us about how you developed this or how you discovered it, I should say, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, my background as a forester helped out. That was my education, and I worked privately as a consultant in Eastern North Carolina for 10 years. And Teresa, a key is learning to think long range. I think 70 years down the road, I'm not going to be here, neither are you. But plan is if you're going to live forever, live as if you're going to die. It's a pretty good idea. So I tell people that you should learn to think at least 3 generations, that we're working on the 4th.
And
so that was the beginning of it, but as we will probably talk about sometime later, Austrian economics figures into this formula very big, that I got hooked on the subject in 1957, and it became a passion from that point on.
So tell us a little bit about Austrian economics, because it did influence your thinking greatly.
Unfortunately, there are 3 schools of economic thought out there today. One is the Keynesian fools. The entire world is in the grip of their thinking right now, and they painted the world in the worst condition of all times, but people don't realize it. The indebtedness that's out there today because of the thought process that you can spend yourself rich. There's no way. But that idea has been out there for a little over 100 years, and, I've been a witness to this devolution during the 83 years that I've been here on Earth. The second economic school of thought out there is the Chicago school. That was Milton Friedman, was the paramount figure, and he was regarded as a free market economist, Teresa, but he was a monetarist. He thought that there had to be an constant increase in the money supply. Otherwise, our economy would stagnate and we'd be all in trouble and so forth. He was known to say such brilliant things as, what could be more idyllic than the Japanese sending us high-quality merchandise, and we send them worthless bits of paper in exchange. There's no way that kind of thinking can prevail. Coupled with the fact, if you'll read David Stockman's 719-pager called The Great Devolution, you'll find that Milton Friedman was the guy who convinced Richard Nixon to go off the gold standard. And it's easy to see what's happened since we went off the gold standard. Only the Austrians have it right. Now, the primary figure there was Ludwig von Mises, and their explanation of the business cycle is the only one that makes sense. That central banks are the problem all over the world. They increase the money supply big time. People think they have something, Teresa, and they don't. It's all imaginary. It's all an illusion. And so you have booms and busts, booms and busts. Well, it favors those guys who are the bankers big time because they know the game is being played. And it's a little man who out there gets hurt all that badly. I'm Austrian through and through, and without Austrian economics, you and I would not be talking.
And I think if we take it down to a micro level, right, all these economists and all these theories, it sounds so over most people's heads, right? But taking it down to the most...
But that's just it. The Austrian economics is down there at the you and me level. It's all about individual action. In fact, Ludwig von Mises' magnum opus is entitled Human Action. It's you and me level.
Without government intervention.
Yeah, it's not mass thinking at all. It's how do individuals behave in their interplay with one another.
So you think about the Keynesians, and if you think about it on an individual level, who has ever become rich by spending?
There's no way.
There's no way.
But that illusion that's created out there, you see, makes the big banks very, very rich. And there's, on my reading list, Teresa, there's 230 books there. And I read them all, of course. I don't put a book on there unless I read it. And if you read those 230 books, you have one PhD in Austrian economics, one PhD in history. There's just no way that you can study economics without studying history. And by the way, Teresa, the word economics is a mystery to most folks out there. They think it has something to do with money. No. The root word is oikos nomos, a Greek term meaning order in the home.
At the micro level.
Yes.
At the micro level. So really the whole system, I believe, sets up people to fail. It sets up, and I don't mean to speak in terms of conspiracies or anything like that, but the reality is it's not to benefit the people, it's to benefit the bankers.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I have seen all this take place, Teresa.
So give us an example of how you've experienced this.
Well, having been born in 1931, that was the Depression years and so forth. And Teresa, and the time that I was growing up, the banking function was held at the you and me level much more so than it is today. In the late 30s, 5-year mortgage was long-term, whatever. When bought my first automobile in 1952, 18 months is as long as you could get a payment schedule, and you had to put 1/3 down. Well, what do we got today? Well, we hear on the radio 7 years and nothing down, and we'll make the first 3 payments for you, et cetera, and stuff like that.
There's actually a 40-year mortgage out there.
Oh, my God.
Right, there's a 40-year mortgage.
Well,
so
see, that's the thing that's happened, and people have got caught in this mindset, and what it's done is taken the banking function away from the you and me level, and it's placed it in the bankers, and so you end up being a slave.
And you do end up being a slave. Those that are in debt, they talk about that, maybe not consciously and maybe not initially, but over time, that's exactly what you become. You become a slave to your master, and the master becomes the banker or the financier, right? The person that you owe money to is who you become a slave to.
Well, that's the banking function. When you go to buy something today, it's got to come from a supply of money. Now, we see that in our everyday life, buying clothes, groceries, and stuff like that, gasoline, whatever. But there are major things out there that we buy, like automobiles and houses and business equipment, et cetera. And so there's got to be a big enough pool from which that money is transferred to make those purchases. In the seminars, I tell people that I'm an aviator. I've been flying airplanes for 6 to 7 years. And I know something about the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. It's finally flying now. It's only 3 years behind schedule. But one of those things, Teresa, cost $200 million. And all Nippon Airlines bought 52. Well, do the third grade arithmetic, and man, that's a lot of money, isn't it?
That's a lot of interest if they're financing it.
It is a cash transaction. Well, it's got to be going from a pool of some sort. That's what banking is about. And the banking function has been turned over to the bankers, and the everyday person out there is a slave today and doesn't have a clue.
They don't. Well, I think some do have a clue.
Oh, yes, you and I know some. You and I know some people that'll never see a bank again in their life. Mary and I haven't seen one in 21 years now.
And that's very true, but I think there are a lot of people who are slaves to the system, and they realize that they're slaves to the system, but they can't figure out a way out, or they don't know that there's another way out, right?
Right, that's it. You stated it better than me, of course.
Yes, no, they realize they are a slave to the system. And
but they don't know what the system is, and they have no idea how to get out. That's what our job is, to show them a way out of that prison. It can be done and is being done today.
And so what does that look like? You said you haven't used a bank in 21 years. Tell us a little bit about how you finance your lifestyle. How are your finances different than the average American?
Well, my book, Becoming Your Own Banker, tells you that I was heavily in debt doing things the way that the world teaches to do, OPM, other people's money. And back there in the 80 and 81, I was involved in the real estate business to a fairly large extent for a person like me. And in the late 70s, interest rates at your local commercial bank was only 8%. But that's prime rate, and I'm not prime, and I haven't met anybody yet who is. That's the best customers the bank has. That's the ones that they know they're going to get the money back. So I made money during the 70s in timberland real estate at 8.5% interest, but then along comes 80 and 81, and the interest rates went up to 23.5%.
And these are good real estate loans, right? It wasn't like you were, had a lot of debt, consumer debt. You had real estate. You had loans on real estate that you had been taught to, these strategies by the gurus. Yes, the way the world teaches. And so I got caught owing $500,000 at 23% interest. Well, that doesn't sound like much money to people nowadays, but Teresa, you remember I'm an Austrian economist, and I know that the increase in the money supply that we've had since that time, Greenspan and Bernanke, and now Miss Yellen, God bless her. Oh, please, Lord, have mercy on us. And that anyway, we're talking about Miss Yellen, the Federal Reserve chairwoman, not Pamela Yellen.
No, oh, heavens no. I asked her the other day, please don't tell me you're kin to that woman.
She's not.
Anyway, she assured me she's not. But you got to multiply everything by 3 to compare with 80 and 81 to bring things up to date. So that means that today, if you were talking about what I got caught owing, it would be the equivalent of $1.5 million at 23% interest.
Which we know back in 2008, many people were caught with mortgages that they couldn't pay with 4%, 5% interest rates.
Yes.
Right?
The debt, the prison of debt.
The prison of debt, and it is a prison.
Anyway, I saw that I could get the money at 5, 6, and 8% from 3 different life insurance companies in those days because I had bought a lot of life insurance by worldly standards, that is. And what I saw is that all I had to do was just buy lots of more high-price dividend-paying whole life insurance, and that would create a pool of money that I could borrow and pay off those snakes and dragons and never see them again. Well, again, we got to go back to our forestry thinking, Teresa. It took me 13 years to get rid of the banks. But, like I say, we haven't seen one now in 21 years.
So we're taught at a very young age. We go to school, maybe high school, college, graduate, and then as soon as we get our job, our first job, we have to save our money into IRS-approved accounts, right, retirement accounts.
And that is insanity.
Where the majority of the funds, if not all the funds, are in mutual funds with large exposures to Wall Street equities, where you're not allowed to touch your money for decades, basically. Right? But then the average American has debt to the bankers for their cars and for their homes. And if they have an emergency, they really don't have much of an emergency fund because we're programmed to think we've got our first job, we've got to put this money aside for retirement. And what you teach to do differently is put your money aside where you can use it and access it to finance your life.
True. Absolutely.
So what would that look like for someone?
Well, the first thing that they got to do is cleanse their minds. And so they've got to read my 2 books, Becoming Your Own Banker and Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, and get this information down very plain in their minds to the point where it becomes true to them. And then they've got to find a practitioner that will be their shepherd in working themselves out of the debt position. And because, you see, the world is still teaching them how to be a slave. And that takes time. So a person really can't do this by themselves except in extraordinary circumstances. They've got to have a
teacher,
shepherd.
A mentor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so for somebody, let's say, and we'll cover most of the age groups, right? But let's say somebody starting right out of college, right? Or they get their first job. Instead of putting money away in a retirement plan, they put their money in whole life insurance, which is a strategy that we use to become your own banker, right? And what is that person's life going to be like? That 23-year-old who starts putting money away the way you recommend and the way we teach?
Teresa, it is absolutely mind-boggling is what it is. People can't conceive of it until they experience it. I was doing a seminar in Los Angeles about 20 months ago. The sponsor there was a Russian Jew, Arkady Milgram. Arkady has been there in the country since 1989. He's done extremely well. But he didn't discover the life insurance business until 7 years ago. And halfway through the seminar, I was telling people what a peaceful, stress-free way of life it is when you get rid of the clutches of the banking organizations. And a brainstorm hit me there about halfway through the seminar. I said to myself, look, man, there is a lady doctor here from Russia. She's a neurologist. I'm going to pick her brain right in front of everybody, and I have no earthly idea what she's going to say. I'm going to take a chance. Doctor, what part does stress play in medical maladies? Her response, it all starts there. It all starts there. Stress. Now, I said to the group, now tell me what is the biggest stress factor that you see in the everyday lives of you and your peers? And their response came back in a chorus, money.
Money, absolutely.
Well, that's what this is all about. It's just not about the product out there. It's changing the way you think. In fact, there's a logo of an organization here in town that I've taught this to big time, and their logo says, changing thinking, changing lives.
I love it. And it's really, I mentioned the 20-year-old to start with, right?
Uh-huh.
But every 20-year-old coming out of college, 20-plus-year-old, or starting their life is stressed about money. The 30-year-olds are stressed about money, 40s, 50s, 60s, 80-year-olds, right? Very, very few people have financial peace. And I believe the reason is because the way we're taught to think and the way we're taught where to put your money.
Yes.
Right? If the system, the way the system teaches for you to position your money really worked, there would be peace. There is
absolutely. That should be as obvious can be.
There's so much information out there.
Said, doing the same thing, expecting different results, is insanity. But that's exactly what's been going on.
Because there's so much information out there on money. We've got it on the television, we've got it on the internet, we've got books. If that way worked, people would have peace.
Yes. Teresa, have you ever experienced noise-canceling headsets?
Sure.
When you turn that thing on, isn't it wonderful?
It's peaceful.
Well,
there's no noise.
Can you imagine having some means of turning off all that noise that's out there in the financial world?
Right.
Well, that's what we got to get people to understand, is that you can get rid of all that noise out there, and it's a totally different lifestyle. And
have strategies that actually work. Yes. And when we come back, we're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back from break, we'll discuss, all the different age groups and the strategies that people can use to have peace throughout their life. Yes. Our guest today is Nelson Nash. We're learning about how to change the way we think about money. This is Teresa Kuhn with Living Wealthy Radio. We'll be right back.
Living Wealthy Radio. Visit Teresa's team online at livingwealthyradio.com, 1-800-382-0830 now. Call 1-800-382-0830.
Welcome back, Austin, to Living Wealthy Radio with Teresa Kuhn.
Have you ever felt like your financial future was controlled by a third-party financial institution, Wall Street? You pay an enormous amount of interest, and the access you have to your money is regulated by somebody else's whims. Just try taking your money out of Wall Street or out of one brokerage account to another. Oh my gosh, I hear the horror stories all the time. Well, we are having a conversation with Nelson Nash, the creator of the infinite banking concept, and we're talking about other strategies that can help you take control of your finances. So, Nelson, before we took a break, we were talking about financial peace and how Americans today don't have any, right? Or very few Americans have financial peace.
Right.
And, it starts in, I think, the 20s all the way up to when people die. There's always this stress about money and having access to money and how much cash they've got, et cetera, et cetera. And you figured out about 20 years ago, figured out 30 years 33. Ago, yeah. A different way of working with money, but for 21 years you've been a free man when it comes to money.
Yeah, no indebtedness any kind to any kind of banking, including a mortgage.
No mortgage, and
No mortgage.
your net worth goes up every single year, whether you want it or not.
Oh, every day.
Every day it goes up.
Yeah, 2 days ago while I was in church, it went up.
And you've set up your family with generational planning. You've got generations that have financial peace.
Fourth great grandchild here not too long ago, and in July we got a fifth coming along. So you mentioned a while ago about the 20-year-old and so forth, and the folks just finishing college, etc. A good example here. My youngest daughter, Kim, they have twin sons, and one of them finished Wofford College in Spartanburg, South Carolina, 2 years ago. The other one finished Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina. Now, both of those are $40,000 a year schools. They don't have any student debt, Teresa, and their cash values of their policies net are $110,000 each. Now, that was all because of this thought process that got implanted when they were first born. Every time a grandchild was born, we'd crank up a significant high premium policy, and my children understood it so well they matched that. And so do you realize that these grandchildren, if they continue to do what I'm teaching, they'll never see a bank in their life. Now, Teresa, that is power you would not believe.
It is so powerful. What do you think in a person's lifetime, the average person's lifetime, do you think they pay an interest to third parties and banks?
Well, unbelievable. Right now, all my studies is about 35 cents out of every dollar they have that's spendable is going to interest alone, and it never changes. And it's all because of the mindset that's been put upon us by all the so-called financial experts.
Right, the programming. So out of 35 cents out of every dollar, or 35% out of every dollar goes to pay interest. And I know listeners are thinking that cannot be. We've got the data to show you that. And I
encourage them to do their own arithmetic and see if that's not true.
Absolutely. And my office shares this information freely because we've found the more educated our clients are, the more they appreciate what we're saying is so true, and the more likely they are to implement these strategies. And so imagine a student coming out of college, no debt, and having $110,000 available to them to start their life.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if they're missionaries or if they're starving artists or whatever. What kind of life do you think they're going to have financially?
Well, that's that peace of mind that their peers do not have. It's like I say, it's just a totally different lifestyle.
If someone was just to finance cars using this concept throughout their lifetime, what's the difference between someone who doesn't use the strategy and someone who does with financing cars?
Well, the ones that does conventional strategy will be a prisoner all their life, and the one that does it our way will have the use of the cars and have several $1 million in cash available to do their have passive income. Okay, that's my substitute for the word retirement, because that's another dumb idea that has been put into people's minds.
That, at a certain age, we're put out to pasture. We're put out to retire.
Right.
We're no longer of service.
Yeah, that's screwball thinking, and it should never have occurred.
That's the definition of retirement, right? Is to put out of service.
What they say. Right.
Right. So the difference could be several $1 million, depends on when they start and what kind of cars they finance. And so we were talking about the 20-something-year-old that, finishes college. What about the 40 or 50-year-old or even the 60-year-old? I have clients who start these strategies in their 80s, believe it or not.
Well, Teresa, I'm 83, love.
I know you are. And
well,
you're
just a
still
month ago, I bought life insurance. It was on my great-grandson.
And you own it and you control the money.
Well, and I'm turning it right. I'm changing the ownership of it right over to his mother immediately because we're at the stage of life of getting rid of things.
Right.
I'd like to graduate from this earth owning absolutely nothing and have the final expense check bounce. So that's the ultimate estate plan.
You can't take it with you, right?
No. Well, my oldest daughter, who's the grandmother, she matched that same policy. And, of course, I've got that one coming up in July. And Kim's going to be the grandmother of this little boy. Anyway, she'll match that policy also. And so these children will have substantial plans started from day one of their life.
I have clients who started their policies in their 20s and they're in their 30s. I have several clients like this, and they have at least $100,000 in their plans. There's no debt except maybe a mortgage, and the amount of peace that they have is just amazing. Whenever we have our client reviews, they're always telling me, our friends are always wondering what the market's going to do, and they're concerned about this. They're getting in, they're getting out. They're like, you know what? We're not worried about any of that. And our net worth goes up every single day, regardless of what's going on in Wall Street or the economy. And Nelson, that's a beautiful thing. And even our clients in their 50s that have a lot of debt, right? They're thinking about, oh my gosh, I want to retire in the next 10, 15 years, right? And they've got debt and they haven't been doing things right and they're worried about Wall Street, and they're starting these policies and these strategies. And it does take some time, but it still works so well for them because it gives them peace that when they do retire, they'll know at the very least how much money they're going to have.
Absolutely.
And when you're in your 50s and 60s, guess what? You're still going to be buying cars, and you're still going to be buying, high-ticket items, maybe not as many as you did when you were younger. But you're in your 80s, and you've still bought cars recently.
Sure.
And, those same clients get on the phone with their kids, and they say, you know what? Start this when you're young, because you have such an advantage when you're young with time.
Yeah, we're right back to my forestry thinking there, you remember?
Yeah.
The earlier you start with a life insurance policy, the longer it goes, the more efficient it gets.
Right.
And it can't go backward.
Right. It can't go backwards.
It can't go backward.
And God doesn't tell us how long we're going to live. So even somebody who's in their 70s or 80s that starts one, they could, in effect, have it in place for 20, 30 years.
Absolutely. And see, this is a great way to transfer wealth from one generation to another. You know that one time I owned 49 life insurance policies. They're just
very specific type of policies, right? These becoming your own banker type of policies.
Absolutely, yes. Now, we're down to 24 now because I've been giving them away. It's a great way to transfer wealth on a tax non-taxable way of transferring wealth from one generation to another. And it's a great way to do things charitably. There are two different organizations that own insurance on me and Mary.
Because from day one, you've got leverage.
Yes. And
you've got, you pay a small amount, you transfer the risk to a third party, the insurance company, and when you die, the death benefit is paid either to your wife, your children, the charity, whoever you choose.
Absolutely.
So you've got the living benefit of having access to your money while you're living, and you've got that death benefit that goes to your family or whomever you designate. Mm-hmm. And while you're living, you get to have access to your money to fund your life or to finance your life and to become your own banker and keep that interest, keep that money working for you instead of making the bankers richer.
You know, one of the interesting things is the number of people that say once they've caught on to this and got involved is, why didn't someone tell me this 10 years ago? Why didn't someone tell me this 20 years ago? It was always there, but people didn't see it. And it was because of the way that they think.
Well, and I go back to programming, right?
Yes, exactly.
I go back to programming. But I think more and more people are waking up, Nelson.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I think more and more people are very concerned about their financial future. Income, jobs, expenses, taxes, Obamacare, right? Medicare, and what that means for the future, Social Security. There's so much insecurity around finances today that more and more people are realizing that they've got to do something different. And they don't want to give their future away to Wall Street or to bankers because they don't trust it anymore.
Yes, these folks that have been sold into the slavery, I'd say that most of them have the gut feeling that there's something fundamentally wrong with the financial world out there today. And so they just don't realize that this is the answer.
Well, we've been talking about whole life insurance, and many people have heard, the financial infotainers talk about how bad whole life insurance is. But the infotainers aren't talking about the kind of whole life insurance that we're talking about.
No, not at all, because they don't understand this. Most of those people out there would never have a clue as to what we're talking about.
Because I believe at this point, they're aware. They just don't want to mention anything because, why bother, right? They don't need to.
Well, they've had it drilled into their heads that this is the way to go, whatever idea they're promoting. And if they're brought face to face with the fact that there's another way, that would destroy their chain of income. And I don't think that would motivate them to do anything. Well,
because for the most part, actually, I think all of them are sponsored by Wall Street firms.
No kidding.
So why bite the hand that feeds you?
Exactly.
And this is an alternative strategy to Wall Street and to banks. And, I've got many clients who have this strategy, use this strategy as their financial foundation, but continue to invest. And you know what happens to them, Nelson? They become better investors.
Yes. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, because they understand that if there's not something out there that I know that I can do better, they don't indulge. There's a concept that's in my book, Economic Value Added, which you know all about. And that fact has been around for over 300 years. If they use this concept as their banking area to make an investment from, then they're more cautious about what they might get involved in an investment of some kind. Most of the things that people call investment out there nowadays is Wall Street type stuff, but that's not an investment, that's speculation.
Well, Wall Street does say the higher the risk, the higher the reward.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett says the higher the risk, the higher the probability you will lose money.
Exactly.
But, it's not only Wall Street. I was on the phone with a client yesterday who was sharing with me 2 investments that he had made outside of Wall Street and how he lost significant amount of money in both investments. He had checked them out thoroughly and he had done his homework and his due diligence and he was sick. He was absolutely sick. He had lost almost $100,000 in these 2 sure things, right? Quote unquote.
Right.
And Nelson, this happens all the time. I think if most people, me included, because I've made tons of mistakes, if we were to go back and, if we were able to go back and get every dollar that we had invested somewhere and still had that dollar working for us, instead of taking that risk or that investment, we just had saved it and had it working for us in our strategy.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us would be in a totally different place financially.
Absolutely.
But
yes.
Somehow we're still wired to want to go after the high risk, high reward type of investments. What is it about our wiring that makes us want to do that?
Well, that's an inherent problem with mankind since day one. And that's human nature. And I've made the observation years and years ago, Teresa, that no person really makes progress except to the extent that he can overcome nature.
So we're wired this way, and we've got to overcome it. And the way to overcome it is to change our thinking.
Yes, exactly.
And being open to
anticipate that possibility. That's why in my seminars, that I talk about Parkinson's law.
Yes.
You got to be able to recognize those sort of things before they appear, and don't get under the influence of them. Because if you do get under the influence of them, Parkinson's law will whip you every time. So
go a little bit deeper into Parkinson's law, because it's such a great law.
He was a noted economist, essayist, humorist. He was an Englishman. He wrote a lot of things, but one of them was just a little book called Parkinson's Law. It has lots of ramifications, and lots of them that are not in the book, but once you've seen one or two of these, you can readily recognize them in other manifestations. But one is that work expands to meet the time envelope allowed. Give a person a job to do, give them 3 days to do it, I can guarantee you they won't get it done for at least 3 days. Now, give them 6 days to do the same job, and it'll take them 6 days. You give them 30 days, and it'll take 30 days to do the same job.
The opposite of that is, when I'm getting ready to go out of town and I've got a ton of stuff to do, all of a sudden I find the time to do it right before I leave, or homework, right, or paper.
That's another manifestation,
right?
Manifestation right there. As it pertains to us, he said that expenses rise to equal income.
And
a lot of folks tell me that's not true. Expenses rise to exceed income. Well, that's Parkinson's law. They say things they've just got to have right now. Bill Bonner did a great job of this when he observed that Americans buy things they don't need with money they don't have to impress people they don't know who could care less.
Isn't that just so true?
It doesn't have to be that way, but you've got to overcome that sort of thing.
So, in closing, how can someone overcome Parkinson's law? Because really, at the end of the day, most people today, not all, but most people are spending what they're making, right?
And then some, yeah.
And then some. So how can they change that way of thinking, and how can our strategies help that person?
Well, I suggest that they get with a practitioner like you. That there's got to be, quote, foot soldiers out there that are seeing a large number of people that are bringing people face to face with these facts and shepherding them through this process to get them to change the way they think. Because when you change the way you think, then you change the way you behave. And this just takes time. There's a lot of noise out there, remember. And they've got to realize noise, recognize noise when they see it, and don't participate in that sort of stuff. They got to change lifestyles. Remember that logo: changing thinking, changing lives.
And it's so true. And Nelson, I, from the bottom of my heart, am so grateful for the mentoring and the teaching that you've given me, and the hundreds of practitioners out there and the thousands of lives that you have changed with your thinking and with your teaching, beginning with your family. You've got 4 generations who will never need any government assistance, will never need Wall Street, will never need bankers to finance their life, and they are financially free. And so your legacy is just amazing what you have accomplished.
Well, there's always the possibility of them getting influenced by the world, and that's something you have to be on constant guard for and make sure that they understand that this is a tool, and that the tool in the hand of an incompetent, not only will he not turn on any work, he'll break the tool. Well,
for our listening audience, if you want to learn how to take control of your finances, the next step to the process of becoming your own banker would be to contact our office here at Living Wealthy Financial. And this is what we do. We share the information, the education, Nelson's brilliant education, with our clients for free, no charge. And we walk our clients through that process of how they can become free. Because conventional wisdom absolutely has led us astray. There's no doubt about that. Ask your friends, ask your colleagues if they've got any financial peace. Ask yourself. You don't. And I believe it's time that we turn to privatized banking strategies that actually benefit us and our families rather than the fat cats on Wall Street and the bankers who control our monetary supply. So we don't have to fear that next big purchase or struggle to keep up with interest payments and creditors and worry about how we're going to fund our retirements and how we're going to pay for our medical expenses. The power to live wealthy is a matter of looking within and changing our thinking, because there are strategies that can solve our financial problems. Nelson, I love you. I thank you for everything you've done for me, for my clients. Since January, I've had over 100 plus referrals to my practice from my clients. Hallelujah. My clients are happy. And this is just part of your legacy. And I so appreciate you being in my life, and excited to see you soon. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity of being on the radio with you, and can't wait to see you again. Yes, absolutely. And thank you for being a guest again on Living Wealthy Radio. You've been listening to Living Wealthy Radio on Talk 1370 and streaming live at talk1370.com. I'm Teresa Kuhn, and I hope you'll join me again next week as I show you ways to live wealthier. Resources are available for you on our website at livingwealthyradio.com.
Presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. The info being presented does not consider your particular financial objectives or situation and does not make personalized recommendations. This material is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified tax advisor or legal counsel or other professional, and you should not use the information in place of a personal consultation regarding your specific situation or needs prior to taking any action based on this information. We believe the info provided is reliable, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, timeliness, or completeness.